Smoke and fire filled the alien sky. The ground shook with every explosion as metal ships burned across the horizon. The war between humans and the Zyran Empire had reached its peak. Among the chaos stood a human engineer named Ethan Cole, wearing a cracked helmet and holding a damaged plasma wrench. He wasn't a soldier, just a mechanic sent to fix defense drones near the front line. But that day, fate had other plans for him. Ethan worked fast, trying to restart a damaged drone when he heard a scream. Not human, but soft and filled with pain. He turned and saw something shining under broken steel plates. Through the dust and fire, he saw her. An alien woman in royal armor trapped under debris, her blue skin stained with blood, her breathing weak. His suit scanner flashed red. Unknown life form, severe internal injury. Ethan hesitated only for a second. "Hang on," he shouted through the smoke. "I'm coming for you." He threw his wrench aside and rushed toward her, dodging falling metal. The ground trembled again as a plasma bomb hit nearby, throwing dust into the air. The fire was spreading, oxygen was low, and every soldier nearby was retreating. But Ethan didn't stop. He reached the alien woman and tried lifting the steel beam, but it was too heavy. The alien's eyes opened slightly, glowing faint gold. "Leave me," she whispered weakly. "The Queen must not know." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not leaving anyone to die. Not today." He found a broken lever and used it as support, straining his muscles until the beam finally rolled off. He lifted her carefully, feeling her shiver in his arms. She was light, almost fragile, but her armor marked her as someone important. Royalty, maybe. He didn't care who she was. She was alive, and that was enough. As he started walking toward the evacuation point, his communicator buzzed. "Cole, get out now," shouted his commander. "The zone's collapsing." "Negative," Ethan replied, panting. "I've got a survivor, injured alien female. Need extraction." The voice came back angry and scared. "You'll get yourself killed." "That's the enemy!" Ethan looked down at the girl's face. Her lips were pale, eyes closing. "Not today," he muttered. "Not on my watch." He pushed forward, running through smoke. The sky flashed red as a huge alien ship crashed nearby, sending a shockwave that threw him off his feet. He shielded her body with his own. Pain burned through his shoulder, but he stood again, holding her tight. "Come on, stay with me," he said softly. "What's your name, Elle?" "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra." "Good. I'm Ethan, and you're going to make it, okay?" Her faint smile faded as she passed out again. Ethan's heart pounded. He could barely breathe, and his oxygen alarm kept beeping. He followed the map on his wrist display, only 300 meters to the human evac shuttle. But a wall of fire blocked the path. He looked around. There was a maintenance tunnel nearby, half buried under rubble. Maybe it led out? He crawled inside with Lyra in his arms, the tunnel shaking behind them. Sparks rained from broken cables, lighting their faces. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment. "You saved me," she said softly. Ethan smiled weakly. "Yeah, well, you owe me one." She gave a small laugh before losing consciousness again. When he finally reached the tunnel exit, he saw the human ship preparing to leave. Ethan waved his arm and screamed, "Wait! Don't take off!" The pilot shouted back, "We're full!" "There's no time." Ethan's voice cracked. "You'll make time." He held up Lyra's body.
"She's dying."
The pilot hesitated, recognizing the alien armor. "Is that—" "Yes," Ethan yelled. "She's someone important. You want peace? You want a chance to end this war? Then let us in." For a few long seconds, no one moved. Then the ramp lowered. Ethan staggered inside, falling to his knees as medics rushed over. The last thing he saw before passing out was the stars fading behind the closing hatch, and the alien princess being carried away by medics. Still alive. Hours later, aboard the human ship, the commander looked at the unconscious Ethan. "You don't even know who you just saved, do you?" The medic replied quietly, "That's Princess Lyra of the Zyran Empire, the Queen's only daughter." The commander stared at Ethan's burned hands and shook his head. "God help him when the Queen finds out." Ethan woke up to silence. No explosions, no alarms, just the soft hum of alien machinery. He opened his eyes slowly and found himself in a bright silver room. The walls glowed faintly blue like living metal. The air smelled of strange flowers. He blinked. This wasn't the human ship. His chest tightened as he tried to sit up. His arm was wrapped in glowing bands, healing tech far beyond human design. Where Am I? He whispered. A voice answered gently. You're safe. For now. He turned his head. Princess Lyra stood beside his bed, her blue skin glowing softly under the light. Her eyes, once weak and fading, now shone with strength. She wore a simple white robe, but her presence filled the room like light fills darkness. You saved me, she said quietly. My people found us when your ship was attacked. You were almost dead, Ethan frowned. Your people? You mean? Before he could finish, the door slid open with a sharp hiss. 4 alien guards in silver armor stepped inside, holding long spears that glowed at the tips. Behind them walked a tall woman dressed in dark gold armor and a long flowing cape. Her eyes were sharper than blades, her aura heavy like a storm. Lyra bowed immediately. Mother, Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Mother, the queen? The woman stopped in front of him. Her gaze moved over him like scanning fire. So this is the human who carried my daughter from the flames. Ethan swallowed hard. Your Majesty, he said, trying to sit straighter. I just did what anyone would do. Her lips curved slightly, but it wasn't a smile. Anyone? My soldiers abandoned her. Your army bombed our lands. Yet you, one fragile human, chose to save her? Ethan met her eyes. Because she needed help. That's all that mattered. For a moment, the queen said nothing. The air felt heavy. Then she turned slightly toward her guards. Leave us. When the room was empty, she walked closer, her golden armor reflecting the soft light. You know, human, in our empire, saving a royal life binds you to it. A life debt. Do you understand what that means? Ethan hesitated. Not really. It means, the queen said slowly, your life now belongs to mine. Lyra stepped forward quickly. Mother, please, he's not our subject. He didn't do this for gain. The queen's eyes flicked to her daughter. Silence, Lyra. You speak as if you know him well. Lyra's voice softened. He saved me. He risked everything. He deserves gratitude, not control. Ethan could feel the tension rise like heat. Look, he said quietly. I didn't save her for any reward. I just wanted her to live. You don't owe me anything. The queen's gaze burned into his. And yet you dare tell me what I owe? Ethan clenched his jaw but didn't look away. Respect works both ways. A strange silence followed. The queen studied him for several seconds, her expression unreadable. Then she gave a faint smile, cold, dangerous. You are brave. Foolish, but brave. Very well. You will stay in my court until I decide what to do with you. Before Ethan could respond, she turned and swept out of the room, her cape flowing like liquid gold. As soon as she was gone, Ethan exhaled. Your mom's intense, he said softly. Lyra almost laughed. She rules 1,000 worlds. She doesn't understand kindness the way you do. Ethan looked at her with a tired smile. Then she's going to hate me. Lyra's expression softened. No, Ethan, she's intrigued by you, and that's what worries me. Later that day, the guards led Ethan through long crystal corridors to a grand hall. Thousands of alien nobles stood watching. In the center, on a high throne, sat the queen, majestic, terrifying, powerful. When Ethan entered, a hush fell. Whispers filled the room. The human, the savior, the queen's new favorite. The queen raised a hand and silence returned. Ethan, Cole of Earth, she said, her voice echoing through the hall. You saved the life of my daughter, Princess Lyra. For that, you have earned the gratitude of the Zyran Empire. Ethan nodded slowly. Thank you, Your Majesty. She leaned forward slightly. But gratitude is not enough. I have decided your fate. The hall grew still. You will remain here, she declared, as my personal guest and under my direct protection. Gasps echoed. Lyra's eyes widened. Ethan froze. Protection? He asked carefully. The queen's lips curved again. Yes, you risked your life for my blood. Now your life belongs within my reach. You will dine with me, walk with me, and answer when I call. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze. It wasn't gratitude. It was something deeper, something that made his heart tighten. He bowed slowly. As you command. As the queen smiled, the crowd cheered. But Lyra looked at him with quiet fear. She whispered, You don't understand, Ethan. No one says no to the queen. And lives. The next morning, pale blue light filtered through the palace windows. Ethan sat by the crystal wall staring at the alien city below. Towers floated in the air, connected by shining bridges. Ships moved like birds across a silver sky. Everything looked peaceful, but he could feel the eyes watching him. Every hallway he passed had guards. Every word he spoke was probably recorded. He wasn't a guest. He was a prisoner in a palace made of gold. The door slid open. Princess Lyra stepped inside, smiling softly. "You're awake early," she said, carrying a tray of strange, glowing fruit. Ethan forced a smile. "Hard to sleep when everyone in this place wants to study me like some kind of bug." She laughed lightly. "You're not a bug, Ethan. You're a mystery. No human has ever lived inside the royal palace." He raised an eyebrow. "Lucky me." Lyra sat beside him. "I wanted to thank you again. You saved my life when even my soldiers ran." Ethan shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said quietly. "Not in my world." Silence lingered. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars underwater. Lyra looked down at her hands. "My mother, the queen, she isn't used to weakness. To her, mercy is danger." Ethan looked at her. "And what about you? You don't seem like her." She smiled sadly. "That's why we argue." Days passed. Ethan began to learn small things about the alien world. Their food glowed with energy crystals. Their music sounded like soft thunder. He worked with palace engineers to fix broken drones. His skill impressed even the arrogant alien scientists. Wherever he went, Lyra followed, curious, kind, asking endless questions about Earth. "What is rain?" she asked once as they walked through the royal garden. He laughed. "You've never seen rain?" "Our planet has no clouds," she replied. "It's water that falls from the sky," he said. "Cold, soft, and beautiful. On Earth, kids dance in it." Lyra's eyes lit up. "Then I want to see it one day." Ethan smiled. "Maybe you will." They walked under glowing plants that shimmered like moonlight. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. Two people from different worlds sharing quiet peace. But deep down, Ethan felt the weight of something darker. Every night, he noticed the Queen's guards following him. Every time he talked to Lyra, someone was listening. And sometimes when he looked up at the palace balcony, he saw the Queen herself watching in silence. One evening, as Ethan worked in the mechanic bay, the Queen appeared unexpectedly. The engineers froze and bowed. She walked straight to Ethan. "You have adapted quickly," she said. "Your hands repair what my best builders cannot." Ethan wiped his hands. "Machines are the same everywhere, Your Majesty. They break when ignored." Her golden eyes studied him. "And what about hearts, human? Do they break when ignored too?" He hesitated. "Sometimes." The Queen moved closer. "You speak boldly. Most tremble before me." "I don't like pretending," Ethan replied. A small smile touched her lips. "That is what makes you interesting." She turned to leave, but paused. "Join me at the royal feast tonight." "It is not a request." When she left, the room fell silent. The engineers stared at Ethan as if he'd been chosen for sacrifice. That night, the grand hall glittered with alien light. Hundreds of nobles bowed as the Queen entered. Ethan stood beside Lyra at the far end of the table, uneasy. The Queen raised a cup. "To the human who defied fire and death to save my blood," she announced. "May his courage honor our empire." Everyone applauded. Ethan nodded politely. The Queen's gaze never left him. During the feast, she spoke to him often, asking about Earth, about humanity, about courage and love. Her tone was calm, but her eyes burned with curiosity, and something else Ethan couldn't name. When the music ended, the Queen rose. "Walk with me," she ordered. They stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city. Wind brushed against their faces. "You care for my daughter," the Queen said suddenly. Ethan froze. "She's my friend." "Friend," the Queen repeated slowly, tasting the word. "On my world, that word has limits." "She's free to choose her own limits," Ethan said. The Queen turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. "You humans speak as if freedom is your birthright. But here, every choice has a price." She leaned closer, her voice soft as silk. "Be careful, human. Affection can look like defiance." Ethan met her gaze. "Then I guess I've already defied you." The Queen smiled, a dangerous, beautiful smile. "We shall see." Later that night, Ethan found Lyra waiting in the corridor, worry in her eyes. "She spoke to you, didn't she?" He nodded. "Yeah, and I think she's testing me." Lyra looked away. "My mother never tests without reason." "Be careful, Ethan. The last man who defied her vanished." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I'll make sure I don't vanish easily." As they walked side by side through the silent halls, Lyra whispered, "You shouldn't have saved me that day." Ethan looked at her. "I'd do it again." And for a brief moment, Under the soft alien light, she took his hand, warm, trembling, alive. Neither of them saw the shadow standing far above on the balcony, the queen watching. Smiling, the royal palace buzzed with strange energy. Servants rushed through glowing corridors, polishing crystal floors and hanging banners of silver fire. The Ziran Empire was celebrating the Day of Ascension, a ceremony to honor the queen's power and her daughter's survival. But Ethan didn't feel like celebrating. He stood in his chamber, looking out the window at the alien sky. The city shimmered like molten glass. His reflection on the glass looked tired, hollow. Since the night on the balcony, the queen's gaze had followed him everywhere. Even now he could feel her presence, powerful, watchful, unpredictable. A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," he said. Princess Lyra entered, dressed in a flowing gown of white and gold. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried unease. "You're not ready for the ceremony," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. Didn't think they'd want a human mechanic in royal celebrations. Lyra hesitated. "Mother requested your presence personally." He frowned. "Personally?" She nodded. "Be careful, Ethan. My mother never invites anyone without purpose." The grand hall was brighter than ever before. Thousands of alien nobles filled the balconies, watching from above. The queen sat upon her high throne, surrounded by golden light. Her expression was serene, but everyone could feel the power behind her calm face. Ethan entered the hall, escorted by guards. Whispers spread through the crowd. "That's him. The human who saved the princess. The queen's chosen." He felt their eyes pierce through him like knives. The queen raised her hand and the hall fell silent. Her voice echoed across the chamber. "Today," she began, "we celebrate the survival of my daughter, Princess Lyra, saved from death by a being from a world far beyond our own." She turned her golden eyes toward Ethan. "A human. A race once thought primitive, yet capable of courage beyond reason." Ethan stood still, unsure what to say. The queen gestured for him to step forward. "Ethan Cole of Earth," she said, her voice rich and commanding. "You risked your life to protect royal blood. For this, the Ziran Empire owes you a debt that cannot be repaid with words," the hall murmured. Even Lyra looked anxious. The queen rose from her throne. "Therefore, before this empire, I offer you what no human has ever been offered." She paused. Every eye in the hall was fixed on her. "A place beside the throne." Gasps filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Ethan's heart stopped. The queen continued, her voice echoing like thunder. "I, Queen Seraphine of Zyra, offer alliance and union to the human who proved worth beyond bloodlines. Become my consort, and your name will be remembered in the stars." The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles whispered, shouted, argued. "A human? Impossible. Blasphemy!" Ethan stood frozen. Lyra's face went pale. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "you honor me, but I don't belong here. I'm just—" The queen raised her hand and the hall fell silent again. "You are not just anything. You are proof that courage has no species." Her voice softened, almost warm. "Join me, Ethan. Together we could shape peace between our worlds. End this war forever." He looked into her eyes and saw more than politics. There was desire, loneliness, and something that frightened him more than any weapon ever could. Ethan bowed his head. "I can't. I didn't save Lyra for reward or power. I saved her because it was right." The queen's expression froze. The warmth in her eyes turned to cold steel. "Think carefully, human," she said, her tone sharp. "Refusal is unwise." "I mean no disrespect," Ethan replied calmly. "But my heart isn't for sale." The queen's gaze hardened. "Then your freedom is." The air in the hall grew heavy. Guards stepped forward, hands on their weapons. Lyra rushed in front of Ethan. "Mother, please. Don't do this." "Silence," the queen roared, her voice shaking the walls. "He rejects the hand of the queen. He rejects the empire itself." The crowd bowed low, trembling. Ethan stood tall. "I didn't reject peace, Your Majesty. I rejected ownership. There's a difference." The queen stared at him for a long moment, then smiled, slow and dangerous. "You are bold, human. Bold enough to test a queen's patience." She turned to the guards. "Take him. Let him learn the meaning of defiance." The guards moved forward, gripping his arms. Lyra screamed, "Mother, stop." "He saved me." The queen ignored her. "Take him to the lower chambers. I will decide his fate later." As the guards dragged Ethan away, Lyra broke free and ran after him. "Ethan," she cried. "Don't lose hope, I'll find a way." He looked back at her and smiled weakly. "I'm counting on it." Hours later, deep beneath the palace, Ethan sat in a dark crystal cell. The air was cold, the light dim. He could still hear the echo of the Queen's voice in his head. A shadow appeared outside the cell. It was Lyra, cloaked and trembling. "She's gone too far," she whispered. "I'm getting you out of here." Ethan looked up. "Lyra, if she finds you—" "I don't care," she said fiercely. "You don't deserve this." Their hands touched through the energy barrier. For a second, time stopped. The human and the alien princess, bound by a choice that would soon shake the entire empire. Far above them, the Queen stood alone on her balcony, staring at the twin moons. Her voice was low and cold. "If I can't have him beside me," she murmured, "then he will never leave my world alive." The underground cells were silent, carved from black crystal that absorbed sound and light. Ethan sat in the corner, staring at the faint shimmer of the energy barrier that trapped him inside. His wrists ached from the restraints, but his mind refused to rest. Every minute, he replayed the Queen's words. "If I can't have him beside me, he will never leave my world alive." He had faced explosions, war, and death before, but this was different. This was a trap built not with metal but with power and obsession. Footsteps echoed softly beyond the corridor. He looked up, expecting guards, but instead he saw Princess Lyra, cloaked in black, moving fast through the shadows. "Lyra," he whispered in shock. "What are you doing here?" She pressed her hand against the glowing wall. "Saving you again." "Lyra, no," he said urgently. "If your mother finds out—" "She already knows you defied her." Lyra cut him off, her voice trembling. "You'll die if you stay here." "I can't let that happen." She tapped a crystal pendant around her neck and the barrier flickered, then collapsed with a low hum. The cell door slid open. Ethan stood, disbelief on his face. "How did you—" "I have allies," she said quickly. "Not everyone agrees with the Queen anymore. Some still believe in peace." Ethan took a deep breath. "Then let's move." They ran through narrow tunnels lit by pale blue lights. The walls vibrated with the hum of distant engines. Every corner could hide a soldier, every sound could mean death. Lyra moved confidently, guiding Ethan through the maze. "These passages were built centuries ago," she whispered. "Escape tunnels for the royal family. Even my mother forgot them." "Let's hope she still has," Ethan replied. They reached a steel hatch that opened into the lower hangar. From there they could see the landing platforms above. Ships parked like sleeping beasts, their hulls gleaming in the moonlight. Lyra turned to Ethan. "We can take one of the patrol crafts. I can override the flight code." But as she reached for the console, an alarm blared across the palace. Red lights flashed everywhere. A cold mechanical voice echoed through the halls. "Security breach detected. Royal chambers compromised. Capture the fugitives alive." Ethan's heart sank. "She knows." Lyra's eyes widened. "No time, this way." They sprinted across the hangar as doors slammed shut one by one. Soldiers appeared from the upper decks, firing plasma bolts that scorched the air. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a metal barrier. "Stay down," he shouted. He spotted a fallen guard's weapon on the floor and grabbed it. The rifle felt heavy. Strange, but his hands knew how to fight. He fired a short burst, striking a support beam that collapsed onto the soldier's path. "Nice shot," Lyra said, breathing hard. "I was a mechanic," he said, grinning despite the chaos. "But humans improvise." They dashed toward a small scout ship on the far end. The doors were sealed, but Lyra placed her hand on the control panel. Her pendant glowed bright and the lock hissed open. Inside, the cockpit flickered to life. "Can you fly this?" Ethan asked. Lyra smiled faintly. "I built the training simulators." As she powered the engines, Ethan looked back through the window. Dozens of guards were storming in, followed by a tall figure in golden armor, the Queen herself. Her eyes glowed like fire. Her voice boomed through the hangar. "You dare run from me, daughter? You dare steal what is mine?" Lyra's hands shook on the controls. "She'll destroy the ship before we can take off." Ethan strapped himself beside her. "Then we fly faster," the engines roared. Plasma fire rained down on them as they lifted off. The ship burst through the hangar gate, scraping against the frame, and shot into the open sky. Above the city, the night was alive with chaos. Drones swarmed around them like silver insects. Beams of energy streaked through the clouds. "Evasive maneuvers," Ethan shouted. Lyra spun the craft sharply, diving between towers and glowing spires. The city lights blurred beneath them. Ethan fired from the turret, taking down 2 drones. "We're not going to make orbit at this rate," he yelled. "There's another way," Lyra said, teeth clenched. "A gravity rift outside the city. A storm that bends light. No one flies through it." He stared at her. "You're saying we should?" Her eyes met his. "If we don't, my mother will hunt us forever." Ethan took a deep breath. "Then let's disappear." The ship roared into the storm. Lightning cracked across purple clouds. The controls sparked. The hull trembled as gravity twisted around them. Lyra struggled to keep balance, her face pale with effort. "Hold on," she shouted. The storm pulled them in, tossing the ship like a toy. Ethan grabbed the console, pressing buttons, rerouting power. "We're losing shields! Divert life support!" she shouted. "I can stabilize us." "Lyra, you'll suffocate." "So will you if I fail," she said fiercely. The engines screamed. Light burst across the windows, blue, gold, then white. For a moment, everything went silent. When Ethan opened his eyes, stars filled the sky. The ship floated in calm space. The storm was gone. Behind them, the Queen's world glimmered faintly like a distant dream. Lyra slumped back in her seat, exhausted but smiling. "We did it." Ethan looked at her, heart pounding. "You're incredible," she smiled weakly. "Don't tell my mother." He laughed softly. "I think she already knows." Far behind in the royal palace, the Queen watched from her command deck as the trace signal of her daughter's ship vanished from radar. Her eyes burned like molten gold. "Run as far as you wish," she whispered. "The galaxy is vast, but nothing hides from a queen." Space stretched endless and silent around the small ship. For days, Ethan and Lyra had drifted through the black void, hiding from patrols, running low on fuel and hope. The hum of the engines was the only sound that reminded them they were still alive. Ethan leaned over the console, checking power readings. "Life support's at 40%. We can't keep running forever." Lyra sat beside him, her blue skin pale under the cold lights. "We'll find somewhere safe. There are free colonies beyond the Queen's reach." He shook his head. "There's no place beyond her reach, Lyra, you know that." Silence fell. For the first time, fear showed in her eyes. "Then what do we do?" Ethan looked at her. "We stop running." Hours later, they landed on a small moon covered in silver dust and dark mountains. The ship hissed as the engines cooled. Ethan stepped outside and breathed the thin, artificial air. The stars shimmered like shards of ice above them. Lyra joined him quietly. "This world was abandoned long ago. No one comes here anymore." "Good," Ethan said. "Then this is where we make our stand." He began unloading tools from the ship, setting up signal dampeners and energy shields. Lyra watched him work, her heart heavy. "You're preparing for war," he nodded. "She's coming. You feel it, don't you?" Lyra looked up at the dark sky. A faint golden light flickered among the stars. Her voice trembled. "Yes, she's already here." The Queen's fleet appeared like ghosts emerging from the void, massive ships made of living metal glowing with alien fire. At their center floated the royal dreadnought, a fortress of gold and black. Inside its throne chamber, Queen Seraphine stood before a hologram of her daughter's ship. Her eyes burned with fury and pain. "Open a channel," she commanded. Moments later, her image appeared before Ethan and Lyra, projected in the moon's thin air. Her face was calm, but her voice carried thunder. "So this is where my daughter hides, with a human who dares defy his queen." Ethan stood tall, his jaw tight. "Your Majesty, this doesn't have to end in blood." Her golden eyes narrowed. "You stole my child, human." "I saved her life," he shot back. "Twice. Maybe you should ask why she needed saving from her own mother." The Queen's expression hardened. "You know nothing of my world." "I know fear," Ethan said. "And I see it in you right now." The Queen's voice dropped to a whisper that shook the air. "You will regret those words." Her image vanished. Moments later, the sky exploded with fire. Plasma bolts rained from orbit, shaking the ground. Ethan dragged Lyra behind a rock ridge as explosions lit up the horizon. "Her fleet's too strong," Lyra shouted. "We can't fight her!" Ethan grabbed her hand. "We don't need to win. We just need to make her listen." He sprinted to the ship, powering up the communication array. Static filled the speakers as he sent a wideband signal. "This is Ethan Cole of Earth. To the Queen Seraphine, stand down. I'm not your enemy." No answer came. Only more explosions. Lyra looked at him, tears in her eyes. She won't stop, Ethan. She'll destroy this world just to take me back. Ethan turned to her. Then we face her together. Minutes later, the Queen herself descended in a shuttle surrounded by golden guards. The storm of light parted as her boots touched the silver sand. Her eyes locked on Ethan and Lyra standing hand in hand at the crater's edge. The wind howled. The wind howled. Step aside, human, she said coldly. You stand between a mother and her blood. Ethan didn't move. No, I stand between a mother and her cruelty. The Queen's gaze sharpened like a blade. Do you love her? Ethan's answer was quiet but steady. Yes, more than I've ever loved my own life. The Queen raised her hand, power gathering in her palm like a sun. Then die with her. She unleashed the blast. Energy screamed across the ground. Ethan threw himself in front of Lyra, shielding her with his body. The explosion struck, sending both of them flying. When the light faded, the Queen saw Ethan still standing, burned, bleeding, but alive. The blast had ricocheted against the small shield emitter he'd built from his ship's scraps. He took a shaky breath. You can destroy me, Your Majesty, but you can't destroy what I am. The Queen's hand trembled. And what are you, human? He met her eyes. Proof that mercy is stronger than power. Lyra stepped forward, tears shining. Mother, please. Look at him. Look at what he's done for me, for us. He could have left me to die, but he didn't. That's what you've forgotten. Love isn't weakness. The Queen looked between them, her expression breaking. For the first time in her long reign, her power faltered. The flames around her hand dimmed, she whispered. He made you defy me. Lyra shook her head. No, Mother. He made me see you. The silence that followed was heavy and raw. Then slowly the Queen lowered her hand. The storm in the sky began to fade. You have your father's fire, she said softly, and his foolish heart. She turned to Ethan. You have won more than any warrior ever has, human. Take her, go. But know this, if you ever betray her, not even your stars will hide you. Ethan nodded. Fair enough. As the Queen's ship rose back into the stars, Lyra leaned against Ethan, exhausted but smiling through tears. She let us live, she whispered. Ethan looked up at the fading light. No, she let herself live. Together they watched the golden fleet vanish into the dark sky, leaving behind the silence of peace for now. The stars drifted quietly over a small green planet at the edge of known space. Two suns rose together, painting the sky gold. The war was over. The Queen's fleet had vanished into the void, and silence returned to the galaxy. Ethan Cole stood outside a small metal shelter he had built with his own hands. His clothes were worn, his skin tanned from alien suns, but his eyes still carried the fire of the man who had once stood before a queen and lived. Behind him, the door slid open. Lyra stepped out wearing a simple cloak, her long silver hair moving softly in the wind. You're awake early, she said, smiling gently. Ethan turned to her. Old habits. Soldiers and mechanics never sleep in peace. She laughed quietly. You're not a soldier anymore. You're free. He looked out at the horizon where their crops glowed faintly in the dawn. Freedom's strange, he said softly. You fight so long to get it. And when you finally do, you're not sure what to do next. Lyra stepped closer. You build, you heal. You live. He smiled faintly. Yes, maybe that's what we do now. Months passed. Together, they built a small colony on the planet's fertile plains. Other refugees from the Queen's Empire arrived. Humans, aliens, outcasts. People who were tired of war and fear. Ethan taught them how to repair machines, how to grow food, how to breathe again without orders or chains. Lyra became their heart. She spoke of peace, of unity, of understanding beyond blood and species. Her voice carried across every campfire, every home, until her story became legend. The princess who chose love over power, and the human who defied a queen. But even legends have quiet moments of doubt. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Ethan sat by the fire alone. He looked up at the stars and whispered, She'll come for us one day. Lyra heard him and sat beside him. She won't, she said softly. She made her choice. He turned to her. You really believe she changed? Lyra nodded. I saw it in her eyes. You showed her something she hadn't seen in centuries. What's that? Humanity, she said simply. 1 year later, a ship appeared in the sky. The colony panicked, thinking the Queen had returned. But when it landed, a single messenger stepped out, carrying a crystal tablet wrapped in gold cloth. Lyra took it carefully and activated the hologram. The image of Queen Seraphine flickered to life. Older, softer, no crown upon her head. "My daughter," the Queen's voice said gently, "and to the human who changed the fate of empires, peace be upon you both. I have seen the ruin my pride caused. The wars I thought righteous were only chains upon our hearts, so I have done what no queen before me dared." The image shifted to show the royal throne empty. "I have ended the monarchy," she said. "The Ziran Empire now belongs to its people. I choose exile as you did. Let the galaxy heal." The hologram faded. For a long moment no one spoke. Lyra pressed the crystal to her chest, tears in her eyes. "She's free too," she whispered. Ethan smiled softly. "Guess the galaxy really can change." Years passed. The small colony grew into a thriving settlement known as New Dawn. Ships came from every corner of space. Humans, aliens, hybrids, all seeking the peace born from one human's choice. Children ran under the twin suns, their laughter echoing through the valley. In the center of the colony stood a tall monument, a sculpture of two hands. One human, one alien reaching toward each other. Underneath it, words were carved in both languages. Courage is not power. Love is not weakness. Humanity is not a species, it is a choice. Every visitor who came to New Dawn read those words and left changed. Some wept, some smiled, but all understood that a mechanic from a small blue planet had rewritten what it meant to be strong. One quiet night, many years later, Ethan sat outside under the stars, his hair now streaked with gray. Lyra sat beside him holding his hand. "Do you ever miss Earth?" she asked softly. He looked up at the glowing sky. "Sometimes. But then I look around and I see what we built here, and I think maybe Earth came with me." Lyra smiled. "You never stopped being human, Ethan, even among the stars." He squeezed her hand gently. "And you never stopped being brave." The wind moved through the trees, carrying the faint hum of their new world, peaceful, alive, eternal. As the twin moons rose together, their light fell on the monument, on the people of New Dawn, on a story that had become legend. The galaxy would remember the day a human mechanic saved an alien princess and taught an empire to feel again,